President Marcos says the government is exerting all efforts to address sugar supply issues. A statement from Malacanang says Mr. Marcos made this remark during a consultation with food manufacturers on Monday. The president also raised the need to assess how the government can increase the supply of quality sugar for food manufacturing to protect jobs. He also said government officials are in talks with traders to bring sugar prices down. Also tackled during the meeting the food manufacturers' possible direct importation with the approval of the Sugar Regulatory Administration as part of emergency measures and the need to increase sugar production. For a business group, the problem is not supply but rising sugar prices. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry says producers cannot afford sugar costs which are more than double the international price.
Sa ngayon, hindi naman ganun ka-serious yung shortage natin. Ang crucial point dito sa sugar is presyo. Yung input cost nila mahal. Kaya yung final products nila mahal din. Ang magsasalo dito sa increase in price is the consumer. At saka the effect of that is inflationary.
The PCCI says failure to address rising sugar prices could lead to the importation of finished goods, which the group says could hurt local beverages and food processors. The Office of the President has accepted the resignation of the Sugar Regulatory Administration Chief. A letter from Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez confirming the resignation of Administrator Hermenegildo Serafica effective immediately. Serafica is the third of 4 signatories of a sugar import order to step down over the past week. Malacanang says that order to import 300,000 metric tons of sugar was illegal. Serafica, in a statement, said he's leaving his post, quote, with a light heart and clear conscience, knowing, he said, that he did his job consistent with or within the bounds of the law. A separate letter also confirming the acceptance of Roland Beltran's resignation from the Sugar Regulatory Board. Senate President Mig Zubiri welcomes the resignation of the Sugar Regulatory Administration Chief and other signatories in that controversial order, but Zubiri says this doesn't clear them from possible liabilities in relation to corruption and smuggling laws. The center is seeking a Blue Ribbon Committee investigation into the matter. He questions the need to import sugar when more than 126,000 metric tons are kept in local warehouses. The Senate President also says he got information of a supposed corruption scheme in the agency that can go as high as 100 pesos per bag or 600 million pesos for 300,000 metric tons of sugar. In other stories, fond of rummaging through second-hand items or ukay-ukay, centers suggest revisiting a law banning commercial importation of used clothing. Amor Santos has more.
Ukay-ukay stores have long been the go-to place of many Filipinos for bargain clothing.
Medyo mura, saka mayroon din mga original dito.
This is so cute! This is so nice!
But at Tuesday's Senate briefing with Customs and Finance officials, Senator Raffy Tulfo pointed out a decades-old law prohibiting the commercial importation of used garments to safeguard the health and dignity of the people. The penalty, a fine of up to 20,000 pesos and imprisonment of up to 5 years. The Customs Bureau says it has confiscated ukay-ukay shipments and filed cases against those behind them.
In fact, as we heighten or intensify our efforts against smuggling, the smugglers also become more innovative, no?
But Tulfo is not convinced.
I don't think so. Sorry, Mr. Buko. Gumala lang po kayo dyan sa mga kanto, sa mga kalye. Dyan sa Divisoria, dyan sa Baclaran, kahit sa ang sulok ngayon, marami ng ukay-ukay. Ano ba kayo, bulag? I'm sorry for the word again. Ayan po, ukay-ukay. Ang laking sindikato po nasa likod niyan.
Tulfo clarifies he's not going after the sellers. He even suggests legalizing ukay-ukay. He says taxes collected can be used for social services.
Ang lugi rito, yung mga nag-aangkat, yung mga nagtitinda dyan sa mga kanto-kanto, because these people are legit. Yung kanyang negosyo, kumukuha sila ng permit.
Pabor kasi, siyempre, dadaan na sa tamang proseso. Ang kwan ng ukay-ukay, wala nang puslitan.
Hindi na sila kakabakabang may papasok na taga-BIR dyan o munisipyo. Di ba? Hindi na sila madidilihensyahan. Unang-una yun, mawawala yung mga ganyang korupsyon.
Senate Ways and Means Committee Chairman Win Gatchalian agrees the law needs to be revisited. while Senator Pia Cayetano has some concerns.
Cooperate with the local government units because like my experience, I've been a mayor for quite some time. The local governments might not be informed that this type of operations are not within the bounds of the law.
On the downside, I've seen a documentary where these ukay-ukay products are literally clogging rivers in some African countries. Like, it's really, really bad. I support the call for revisiting, but we really have to have a full-blown hearing on this.
In 2014, a bill was filed in Congress to repeal the law, but it did not prosper. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
More stories up ahead. With a spike of COVID-19 cases in the country, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention lists the Philippines as a high-risk travel destination. And the House panel approves proposals to postpone the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections in December. More on this when we return. Keep it here on Newsnight.
My faith in God led me to all these blessings. Kaya ako, all out sa lahat ng bigay ng Panginoon. Spirit, mind, and body. Sa tulong ng exercise, healthy diet, and MXU+. Sabi ng tatay ko, when you put God first, you will always be first. MXU+ with CoQ10 and L-carnitine, my plus to life.
Mahalagang paalala, ang MX3 Plus ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
For my babies, only vet-approved NutriChunks puppies. The only one with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat with essential nutrients to help them grow strong and healthy. Happiness! Listo, ganado sa NutriChunks puppies.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention added the Philippines to its list of high-risk countries for COVID-19 alongside Nepal and Russia. The Level 3 classification applies to places with over 100 cases per 100,000 people in the past 28 days. But health officer in charge Maria Rosario Vergere says the U.S. CDC uses different metrics from the Philippines.
In terms of this risk classification of USCDC, it talks about the number of cases and the number of those testing positive. But we need to further go deep and analyze this. Ilan ba dyan sa sinasabi nila na naging high risk tayo ay severe at critical? Ilan ba dyan ang na-ospital? Ang atin pong severe and critical infection remains to be at that low number, less than 1,000. And ang atin pong mga na-admit, manageable at nape-preserve pa rin natin ang ating healthcare system capacity.
The U.S. CDC recommends avoiding travel to Level 3 countries if one's COVID-19 vaccination is not up to date. The country records over 1,000 new cases of the more transmissible Omicron subvariants. The health department listed 1,011 new BA.5 and 19 BA.4 infections Tuesday. The DOH on Monday tallied more than 3,400 COVID-19 cases. The first batch of replacements for expired vaccines is set to arrive in the country in December. These doses from the COVAX facility will come in tranches until April next year. Health OIC Vergere notes this is to make sure the country will be able to comply with the condition that the replacement vaccines will not expire.
concrete repercussions, pero syempre yung credibility ng bansa as to absorptive capacity will be so much affected kapag tayo ay nakaka-violate ng ganitong mga kondisyon ng donor natin. So atin pong nakikipag-usap sa COVAX, that's why our negotiations with them, our recommendations, they will replace not the entire number of vaccines na sinabi natin kahapon kung ilan yung nag-expire, ngunit meron lang tayong specific amount of vaccines na hinihingi to be replaced. So that, alam natin, ito yung requirements natin for the succeeding months. We have existing supplies which are sufficient to last until the end of the year.
On Monday, the DOH confirming before the Senate that nearly 20 million COVID-19 vaccine doses have expired. Monkeypox updates now all 10 close contacts of the country's first and so far only monkeypox case are on their last day of quarantine today. Vergere saying none of them showed any symptoms of the viral infection. Another school in Metro Manila is forced to close because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but as AC Nichols tells us, the Colegio de San Lorenzo only announced its closure after the enrollment period.
Anxious parents and students converge at the Colegio de San Lorenzo in Quezon City. A day earlier, the school announced its permanent closure, just 1 week from the opening of classes next Monday.
Nakakagalit po kasi expected po namin na magiging masaya po yung school year namin ngayon and wala po kaming school na mapapasukan. Colegio de San Lorenzo officials were met with angry reactions during a general assembly on Monday, when parents and students found out the school is closing due to financial issues brought about by the pandemic. The school, covering preschool to college levels, had apparently been accepting enrollees until last week.
Mag-uumpisa na yung pasukan eh. Late na nila sinasabi. Tapos ngayon, pahirapan pa nila kami sa pagkuha ng mga records, mga transcript. Hindi pa nagpapapasok. Kanina pa ako nakapila dito.
Sophomore college student Gabriel Barba says as a person with disability, it's going to be a challenge for him to find a new school. He says he's also worried about having to shift courses once he transfers to another school.
Yung dean ng department namin nag-recommend na rin ng schools. But then, yung schools na na-recommend kasi is not aligned to our program. May nag-recommend na school na sa kanila lang daw kami. Pero kasi ako, film major. Pero yung course nila doon is for broadcasting lang.
The Dean of College of Criminology, Dr. Ariel Manlusok, says they were told school operations will officially end in September. He says this means employees should receive salary until then. Manlusok adds they were also promised separation pay.
Instead of giving 1/2 of the 1 month's salary, multiply by the years of service as per the labor code, the Board of Trustees decided to double the legal separation, meaning ginawa nilang 1 month multiplying by the years of service.
Rules set by the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, states that school closures must take effect at the end of the school year. CHED chairperson Prospero de Vera says they were informed about Colegio de San Lorenzo's shutdown only last week. He says CHED will figure out if there are possible violations on the part of the school.
They accepted already tuition fees, and then arbitrarily decided they will not open. So there is a certain element of, maybe deceit. Once you accept tuition fees, that is already a contractual agreement between you and the student that you will provide education in exchange for the fees that are paid.
AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
In other news, a House committee approves the proposal to postpone the barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections set this December. CNR Kanghel has the details.
With 12 affirmative votes, the House Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms approved proposals to postpone the December 2022 Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections by 1 year. The panel set a 3-year term for the officials who will be elected in December 2023. The last barangay and SK elections were held in 2018. If the polls were pushed back to 2023, incumbent village officials would have been in office for 5 years. Despite the committee approval, Commission on Elections Chairman George Garcia says preparations for the upcoming polls will continue until the new election schedule becomes a law.
Amin naman pong timetable, ang cut-off namin is the end of August. Kasi nga ayaw po namin pumasok ng bandang September na kung saan talagang no choice kami but to print the ballot. So, tuloy-tuloy yung bilis na ginagawa namin sa preparation.
So far, the COMELEC has spent only 800,000 pesos of its 8.5 billion peso budget for the barangay and SK elections. Garcia assures funds won't be wasted as election supplies could still be used in the next polls. However, he says COMELEC would need an additional 5 billion pesos if the barangay and SK elections were to be held next year, as there will be additional registered voters.
That will, because of the additional number of voters, we will create additional precincts. And because of the additional precincts, we'll be hiring additional poll workers. We'll be needing additional forms, additional materials.
For some lawmakers, the additional cost means the government won't be saving money after all by pushing back the barangay and SK polls. Some voters also say incumbent barangay officials have been serving for far too long.
Hindi ako pabor. Hindi ako pabor.
Hindi po. Hindi ako pabor. Kailangan nang ituloy dahil sobrang tagal na eh. Meron nang kailangang palitan dahil sa medyo may hindi na tama ang ginagawa. So para merong chance naman yung mga bago na napapalit na magawa nila ang tama.
But a House leader says the postponement would mean funds can be realigned to more important government projects.
We should not always say that if we postpone the election, makakatipid tayo, or if we postpone the election, it could help the 8 billion to gear up the economy.
And at this point in time, given that the fiscal space is not too big and that there are other more pressing expenditures at this point in time, particularly, we need to have adequate funds to ensure that there is safe return to face-to-face classes.
Ang executive has the power to realign by declaring savings and then realigning it for different programs.
Should the barangay and SK polls be postponed, Garcia says the COMELEC will spend the coming months preparing for the 2025 midterm elections. Cian Arcangel, CNN Philippines.
A party list lawmaker trains his guns on TV5 after the network signed a landmark deal with ABS-CBN. In a privileged speech, Rodante Marcoleta claimed TV5 violated a provision of its franchise, with ABS-CBN becoming a minority shareholder. He called the two networks deal a merger, even if the Lopez-led company only bought a minority stake worth over 2 billion pesos, while Media Quest Holdings, which operates TV5, remains as majority and controlling shareholder.
With the substantial purchase, Mr. Speaker, of the outstanding stocks of ABS-CBN, I believe Section 10 of the franchise of TV5 was violated because the rights and obligations have virtually been transferred to ABS-CBN. Kung pwede ba, Mr. Speaker, na ang isang network na hindi na natin binigyan ng lisensya because of this established violations, wala na siyang prangkisa. Pwede ba siyang sumakay ng ganun-ganun lang without settling the obligations to the country, to the government?
The Bureau of Internal Revenue and Securities and Exchange Commission had already clarified ABS-CBN regularly pays its taxes. Marcoleta also claimed the PLDT Group, TV5's parent company, is a front for an Indonesian businessman.
This particular deal must be looked into, Mr. Speaker. And I think because of this deal, we have yet to have let the proverbial cat out of the bag, Mr. Speaker. Why? Media Quest, the parent company of TV5, is owned by PLDT beneficial trust fund. And the grapevine, Mr. Speaker, is so loud that PLDT Beneficial Trust Fund is owned by an Indonesian national.
ABS-CBN is now a global content creator company. CNN Philippines has reached out to ABS-CBN and TV5 for comments on the issue. In other stories, the Philippine and South Korean Air Forces held a breathtaking military air show not seen in 3 decades. As David Santos tells us, the aviation display aims to show the strong ties between the two countries, which began before the Korean War.
High above the Basa Air Base in Pampanga, remarkable display of appreciation over a long-standing alliance. South Korea's Black Eagles and the Philippines' Bulldogs banding together in a show of unity and camaraderie. Both air forces started out as regional military powerhouses in the 60s, but the Philippines eventually lagged behind and was forced to retire its famous flying squad, the Blue Diamonds, in the early 2000s.
Our partnership with them started since the Korean War, and in 2014 we signed the deal for the FA-50, and in 2015 we sent our pilots to be trained in Korea.
The Philippines is the last stop of the Black Eagles World Tour of Air Shows aimed at showcasing their astonishing skills of aerial precision, flying at supersonic speeds, an average of 300 to 500 miles per hour, and streaking into the sky up to 6,000 feet in perfect formation. The exhibition, which could have included over-the-top maneuvers, spoiled by bad weather.
Last Saturday we were lucky to be able to show the full display to our audience, but today, unfortunately, the weather wasn't good enough.
Still, everyone watching below had a great time. After all, this was the first time in decades Filipinos witnessed an air show soaring overhead, the kind they only get to watch in the movies.
Almost the same. Parang maganda. Para maano rin mga bata, mag-enjoy. Ma-inspired sila sa mga mga Korean.
They are inspired by the moves and maybe someday they want to be a pilot.
The Philippines is eyeing to buy more combat aircraft under its long-term modernization program, with Korea's KF-21 as among the leading contenders.
And the KF-21 is definitely within the picture of consideration natin for a multi-role fighter for the Philippine Air Force. But of course, we also we're looking into other platforms.
While it may be a sad reminder of our airmen's once glorious past, the Korean Air Show could also be a sign that some things are also finally looking up. In Pampanga, David Santos, CNN Philippines.
When we return, Zayn treats fans to a swoon-worthy version of the One Direction song, Night Changes. And Blackpink is now among the 2022 VMA's roster of performers. You're watching CNN Philippines.
Dangerous out there. Buti na lang there's locally superfruits. Para sa akin, super nutritious, super delicious. All superfruits contain more antioxidants than your average fruit. Superfruit for super you.
Today we announced our Daikin Air Solution Shop. Daikin Air Solution Shop is the front runner of all of other dealers. They are the solution provider for consumers. Then they can experience the most advanced air conditioning there. Also, we are now supporting their design and engineering capability. So that's why all of the customer problems they can solve. Our current 5 air solution shop is RGCA in Quezon City, PVS Batangas, Hope Genesis in Laguna, Quickserve, Davao, AirConnex, Cavite, and another 2 coming soon in Parañaque. One is Rosarito, another one is Arcade. When customer visits Air Solution Shop showroom, they can experience internal environment quality improvement. they can get experience of how to improve interior environment quality. If customer want to improve your house and your shop or even restaurant air quality, please visit our Air Solution shop or please visit their homepage.
Welcome back. Jollibee's Chicken Joy was named the best chain fried chicken in America by a global food website. The homegrown fast food company reigns supreme among 15 other restaurants in the U.S. Jollibee's fried chicken went head-to-head with products from famous chains like KFC, McDonald's, Popeyes, Wendy's, and Burger King. Eater.com praised Chicken Joy for its crunchy skin that it said is subtly seasoned. Jollibee has 83 stores across North America and 1,500 worldwide. Moving now to the hard court, Gilas Pilipinas kicking off preparations for the fourth window of the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers with the squad's first practice session behind closed doors. Head coach Chot Reyes led the training along with two-time PBA Grand Slam champion coach Tim Cone last night at the Meralco Gym in Pasig City. Gilas holdovers like Kiefer and 30 Ravenna and PBA players such as Jaime Malonzo were present. More cagers, especially from the pros, are expected to join soon. Gilas will take place on 2022. Gilas will take on 2022 FIBA Asia Cup silver medalist Lebanon on August 25th. In entertainment, Zayn Malik shares his beautiful rendition of One Direction's hit song Night Changes. Fans took to Instagram as the former One Direction member posted his own a cappella version of the band's song.
But there's nothing to be afraid of, even when the night changes, it will never change. Me and you.
With this move, fans expressed their hopes for the band to reunite soon. Blinks, get ready for a live performance from your favorite girl group come the MTV Video Music Awards. Blackpink is set to hit the VMA stage, airing on August 29th, 8 a.m. Philippine time. The K-pop group has yet to announce what song it'll perform, but it is dropping a new track, Pink Venom, this Friday. And that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by
Oh, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
DYKB Radio
Suffering from an illness such as arthritis, migraines, or even allergies, it is only natural that we reach out to a pharmacy or a doctor right away. Other times, like here in the Philippines, some use home treatments where people would substitute things like ginger, honey, and garlic for prescription medication. But did you know that there is also an alternative medicine practiced in some parts of the world which uses highly diluted substances? Practitioners claim that these can cause the body to heal itself. In this episode, let's learn more about the alternative medicine called homeopathy. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.
Our guests are here today to give insights on homeopathy. With us is Dr. Homer Lim. He is an integrative oncologist and president of the Philippine Society of Orthomolecular Medicine and International Anti-Aging and Integrative Medicine Society. And also with us is Ms. Denise Celdran. She's a homeopathic therapist and instructor and the head of Homeopathy Philippines. Now, thank you both for joining us on the program today. Now, Denise, as a homeopathic therapist, can you please share with us what homeopathy exactly is?
Okay, so homeopathy, as you mentioned, are dilute substances. So for example, we have a tincture. Let's say I have a bottle of calendula tincture. It's calendula flowers in alcohol. What they do to make a homeopathic version out of this is they take a 10% with 99% water, and then they bang it 100 times. And then they take 10% of that, put it in another bottle, another 90% water, bang it 100 times. So it goes through a process of dilution, and in between each dilution, it's succussed or some kinetic energy is added to it. So at the end of the line, all of this energy applied to it breaks down the electron bonds in the original tincture, and then that releases what we call the vibration of the remedy. So it goes more into quantum and nanophysics.
Now, in the Philippines, to practice homeopathy, one needs to secure a certificate from the National Certification Committee for Homeopathy under the Philippine Institute of Traditional and Alternative Care. Now, Ms. Denise, how prevalent is the practice of homeopathy here in the Philippines today?
So homeopathy in the classical sense is not really being practiced here in the Philippines. So what we call homeotoxicologists, they're not actually practicing the classical way of homeopathy. So actual classical homeopaths, I'd probably say probably none. What we do is we just teach the lay people how to practice homeopathy at home because they're very safe substances. They don't have any toxicity whatsoever. So that has been my advocacy, is just how to bring homeopathy to the layman and into the home and how to practice it safely.
Dr. Homer, how does homeopathy help people side by side with conventional medical treatments?
Well, actually, when we try to integrate conventional medicine with homeopathic medicine, it will be a bit challenging, especially for those who are practicing homeopathy, because some of the effects of the conventional medicine might actually mask the effect of homeopathy. But in general, no, in like what they are doing in Germany, in Austria, in Switzerland, they're actually combining conventional medicine with homeopathic medicine. So I think that has to be emphasized, that you can really use homeopathic remedies with conventional medicine. The reason behind this is we want to achieve a better result with regards to treating a certain disease or ailment or a condition with the least amount of side effects or the least amount of drugs to be given, because at the end of the day, it's really about how to make the patients have a better quality of life, at the same time less likely to develop adverse events or side effects.
Okay, so better quality of life definitely is a good target for this. Now let's discuss a little bit about the management process, the treatment process of homeopathy, to further understand how these remedies, these treatments are achieved. Now, Denise, can you walk us through how you diagnose and prepare the treatment for your patients?
So what we usually do is we go through a question and answer interview as well, some medical history, and then from there we get what are the major complaints. So we don't go by the name of, let's say, eczema or bronchitis. We go by the symptoms. Just like going to a regular doctor, you give your symptoms and then you try to choose the appropriate remedy. Because I failed to mention in homeopathy, how we choose a remedy is we match the symptoms of what we call the poisoning symptoms of a remedy with the symptoms in a sick person. And when I say poisoning symptoms, I'm just saying, for example, onion. When you cut an onion, you start to tear and then you start to sneeze. Those are the poison symptoms of onion. So we match it to somebody with a common cold or rhinitis with a similar manifestation. So that's how we match the symptoms.
Now, Denise, why is knowing the general health, emotional state, lifestyle, as well as diet important in how treating your clients will be?
Because we are a vitality therapy. We're not a medical modality. It's more of increasing the vitality of the organs. Like, for example, somebody has a liver issue, we increase the vitality of the liver by giving the homeopathic remedies to invigorate the liver. So of course, diet is very important because you don't want to bring down the vitality of the liver. Another thing is also, we look at the whole qi, like traditional Chinese medicine. Emotions affect, trauma affects, all of these external and internal emotional actions affect the vitality of the bodies.
Now, is this kind of treatment safe for infants, Dr. Homer?
Oh, yes, definitely. For homeopathic medicine, I think this is one of the better alternatives. I'm sure a lot of mothers there who are very concerned with their babies and children with regards to giving drugs or antibiotics or, some of the Western medicine, they're a bit concerned. So a lot of mothers are actually now looking into homeopathic remedies because they are really safe, generally safe, and very infrequent side effects.
That's a good point, Dr. Homer. You mentioned that they're generally safe. Let's talk about some of the side effects. How common are side effects here? Maybe allergic reactions when it comes to homeopathic treatments?
You rarely have allergic reaction to homeopathic remedies unless they have allergic reaction to certain what we call excipients, because homeopathic remedies can be in several forms. It can be in liquid drops. It can be in pellets. So these pellets, sometimes they're coated with certain ingredients that, might develop allergy. But homeopathic remedies, because they are diluted to an extent wherein it's very minute, the allergic reaction is actually almost, zero.
When we return, we'll go over some of the more common ailments that homeopathy can treat, as well as the risks to be aware of before beginning some of these treatments. Only here on MedTalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. Now, before the break, we learned what homeopathy basically is and how these remedies are created specifically to enhance the vitality of a person. Now, for some Filipinos, depending on which region you are from, they have some beliefs that certain herbs and plants can be used to help treat ailments like a sore throat or the common cold. Now, Denise, of the common ailments that Filipinos undergo, they suffer, which ailments do you see most which have a great effect with homeopathic remedies?
Actually, the homeopathy has its greatest effect in emergencies and accidents. So we have remedies, let's say, for arnica, for blunt head trauma, or they fall. We have calendula for wounds. We have lachesis for snake bites. We have apis for insect bites. So it's in an emergency situation where you see it really acting fast, and it will really buy you time before you reach the hospital, or if you have no access whatsoever, at least you're already giving something. So for me, that's the first class that I teach, is always emergency prescribing, because you could really save a life. Like, for example, even in collapse, difficulty breathing, we have CarboVeg. So in any emergency situation, there's always something that can revive you. And this really helps if you're getting yourself to a hospital. For that short period of time, it can be a lifesaver.
Now, which illnesses, Denise, are challenging to treat using homeopathic remedies?
For me, because we consider this alternative care, I get a lot of the end game. They've tried everything. They've tried steroids, they've tried antibiotics. They have Steven Johnson's, or they have eczema that already has too much steroids. So those are the most challenging, because then we have to detox all of that. We have to detox the layers of medication that have sort of cloud the picture, and maybe that can take 6 months to a year and even more. So just like in the regular medical field, it's those with very serious chronic ailments that have a lot of suppressions.
Now, Dr. Homer, what factors should people consider before they think of undergoing a homeopathic treatment plan?
Well, if the most important thing to consider here is really getting a experienced homeopathic practitioner, because there are literally thousands of homeopathic remedies out there, and choosing the best homeopathic remedy really requires a lot of experience and knowledge with regards to these homeopathic treatments.
If someone has an adverse reaction to some of the treatments, although you mentioned that it would be rare, are they prepared to treat these reactions?
What's nice about homeopathic remedies is all you have to do is actually just stop. So immediately when you stop it, you know, if there are any allergic reactions or adverse reactions, it usually would disappear within 3 to 4 hours, because the effect is really, for some of these remedies, are short term. So the adverse reaction or the length of adverse events or side effects is really not that significant.
What are the limitations of homeopathic medicine, if there are any? We'll discuss this after the break. Keep it here on MedTalk Health Talk. Welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk. Now that we've discussed some of the ailments that are addressed by homeopathic medicine, the risk factors that you have to consider before going down this path, let's now find out the limitations, if there are any, of practicing homeopathic medicine. Now, I'll start first with Denise. Up to how serious of an illness can homeopathic medicine be able to address?
You know, in my experience, it works hand in hand with regular medicine, so it can be as serious as possible. Like, for example, my father had stage 5 kidney disease. We're able to extend his life by many years with the use of homeopathic remedies as well as his regular remedies. So because it's a vitality therapy, it increases the vitality of the body. It really doesn't have that much limitations as long as you know what remedies to use. And of course, you know how to use it hand in hand with whatever therapies you're undergoing as well.
Now, Dr. Homer, what are some of the considerations, someone who's never tried homeopathic medicine, what are some of the considerations before undergoing alternative medicine choices, especially those with chronic diseases?
Well, I think the most important thing to consider really is, are there any side effects or, you know, adverse effects if you do use homeopathic remedies? So these side effects are very rare and seldom. So if you really want to try homeopathic remedies, I would suggest you seek a consult with a experienced and knowledgeable homeopathic practitioner. So I think there's really not much of a problem, unless of course you take several homeopathic remedies altogether. So you should not try to self-medicate.
Okay, that's a very good point. That's why I'd like to ask Denise how risky it is for someone to practice homeopathic medicine on their own without consultation with someone who is very familiar with the ingredients that you may use.
Actually, as a first aid and acute, it's quite safe. That's why they sell it in Whole Foods, in the grocery, because it's a couple of sugar pills that you can take if you have a cold. The worst thing that can happen is it's not going to work, but there's not going to be any adverse effect. So if you feel like you're taking something for your cold and your cold is getting worse, then it's probably because you just chose the wrong homeopathic remedies. I would be more careful, of course, when we're going into chronic illnesses or people that are very delicate, old age, or very like asthmatic young children. That's where they really have to be careful. But for run-of-the-mill emergencies and acute situations, it always helps.
Denise, what would you advise someone who has never tried homeopathic medicine yet? How should they go about it? Someone who's a beginner amongst this form of treatment.
Well, I would get probably a few first aid remedies such as arnica for bumps and bruises, calendula. So maybe about 8 to 12 first aid, and then to start trying it from there. And then, you know, once you see how fast it makes your wound heal or how clear your bruise becomes after a day or so, then you'll become more inspired to try other remedies for other more involved ailments.
Now, Dr. Homer, what is the homeopathic landscape currently now here in the Philippines?
So actually, you might be surprised, you know, homeopathic remedies, especially here in Manila, it's there's a following. Similarly in Visayas and Mindanao, there's a group of doctors. It's called the Philippine Society for Integrative Medicine and Homeopathy, or homotoxicology. So they use a bit of homeopathic remedies from Germany. We also have, aside from Ma'am Celdran, we have Jake Tan, Dr. Jake Tan, who's a homeopath also. He's quite famous. So It's been around for, I would say, at least 20, 30 years now.
Now, Dr. Homer, that's one important thing, especially for someone na baguhan pa lang with homeopathic medicine and they want to seek the correct information with someone who is qualified. What can someone who is new to this watch out for to decrease the risk of getting wrong information?
Well, we have, again, the Philippine Society for the Integrative Medicine on Homotoxicology. It is now a certified provider for training on homeopathy and homotoxicology. You just have to look for those doctors who are part of this organization who have been certified by PPAC. If you have those certifications, I think you're more likely to be safe and you'll get the proper or right homeopathic remedy for your condition.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. But before we go, I'd like to hear from Denise. If you have any words for our audience, any tips, any advice?
Well, for my only advice is don't be afraid to try it because it can only really increase your vitality. So it's very safe not to worry about it.
Then, of course, Dr. Homer, any parting advice for our audience?
For everyone who's listening, if you're taking a big number of conventional drugs and you feel that it's not helping, you might want to look into homeopathic remedies because they do have a certain efficacy and safety, I think, which is very, very important, safety and efficacy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Homer Lim and Ms. Denise Saljan, for being with us today, sharing some information and your insights on homeopathy. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk. We'll see you again next time.
Let's get ready to